Hello, everybody. So, I wanted to put on my silliest jacket and talk about something kind of serious, I think, that a lot of us are facing right now. So, as most of you guys know, I speak a lot about the stress of our profession and the epidemic of suicide and burnout that happens in our profession. And what a better time to talk about it than now, when most of us are at our kind of highest stress point, right? So when I talk about this, I talk about like the 12 tenets of stress that causes stress in our profession. And these are things like living in an environment of fear, time constraints. I have some of my notes in front of me. The media portrayal, litigation, and one of those is debt. And unfortunately, especially in the United States, many of us are highly leveraged in debt. And so when a crisis like this happens, we are scrambling. And I'm one of those people right here for you. In the last 2 weeks, like many of you, my income went from being okay to basically being nothing. And it is stressful. So first, before we talk kind of more human about things, I want to give a few tips, because these are things that I've done in the last 24 hours, thanks to some other friends, that has helped me. What I realized is that you can call your banks that service your loans, like your student loans and your mortgages and your car loans. And because this is a national disaster, they will allow you to defer this. So I am currently deferring my mortgage for a few months. I am currently deferring my student loans for a few months. And the good thing about this being a true crisis and a national disaster is what they call it, is that we can actually defer our loans. So up until today, I was wondering how I was going to pay my mortgage and my student loans that are very, very high, and my car loans. So I'm happy to tell you that the banks are being forgiving with this. Some of the banks are even giving us no interest for these few months, which is nice. Some of the other ones, like I think my mortgage, I still have to pay, I'm still going to accrue interest. But it's good that we know that we have these options. And for even my friends that aren't dentists, I just saw my friend Billy joined, many of us have mortgages, have car payments, and if we have no money right now, it's really nice that the banks are allowing us to do this. Hello from Chile, hello. Hi, Billy. So that was my first little tip, is that I've been on the phone for hours today trying to defer some of my loans. And, the average dental student gets out of school with $278,000 in debt in the United States. Hello, Vancouver. And this is a lot of money. I was double that, or almost double that, because I went to USC, the most, I think, expensive school in the world, perhaps. Maybe NYU is right up there with us. But graduating with, $400,000, $500,000 in debt is difficult. And no matter how much you make, that's difficult, because you have to make so much pre-tax money in order to pay this off. So those are my first tips. is spent when you're not working, when your office is closed now. You plan on spending, 2.5 hours, 2 hours per bank. So if your student loan is with someone else, and your home loan is with someone else, and your car loan is with someone else, and your other car loan is with someone else, you may be on the phone for 8 hours. But if this is going to allow you to get through these difficult times, then it's worth it. So I'm also concerned about my friends, my followers, people on here that are students and that are in their last year, and I don't know how we're going to be graduating our 2020 graduates, having to do their clinical, final exams and things on patients. It's going to be very difficult. Another thing that I wanted to speak of is there's a new article that came out today in USA Today, and I hope you guys can't hear my bulldog licking her paws. Butter, hey, stop. A new article that came out that speaks about the over-treatment in dentistry, and specifically in DSOs is what this article is about. So if you haven't seen it, just look up USA Today, dentistry over-treatment, and you'll probably find it. Pretty crazy. For anybody that has worked in a DSO or has worked with kind of a managing doctor, oftentimes there are these pressures on producing, right? And this comes from private equity that owns these large DSOs and really puts pressure on doctors because the private equity people are sitting up at Wall Street and they're not worried about the treatment. They just want the money. But when you have a student that is directly out of school that is highly leveraged from student loan debt, and they need they need money to survive, oftentimes it forces people to do the wrong thing. And my advice, because I've been there, when I first got back from my residency, I worked for some DSOs, and it was a really difficult experience for me. I did some things that I probably shouldn't have done. I denied some things that they asked me to do, so I feel good about that. But it is something that is happening in real time. It's happening right now. And if you haven't worked in a DSO, you may not have experienced it. But I know that many of my followers are young doctors that, like me, are highly leveraged with loans, and you need to pay your bills. But I encourage you to stick to your guns and keep your aesthetics, not your aesthetics, your ethics. Keep your aesthetics high too, but your ethics high. Because if you do something that you know is not right and you have a conscience, you're going to have a really hard time sleeping at night, and you'll always remember that case. And you really need to keep your ethics high. And at a time like this, when we're all struggling for money, we all have to pay our bills, we have to take care of our families, keeping your ethics high is one of the best things you can do. So what can we do about the situation right now? My computer's going to die, so I'll just go off the cuff. With what's happening right now, I feel like what many people aren't talking about is how we feel. And this is something that I've tried to bring to light with some of my lectures about the emotion emotion of dentistry, right? About the stress that we go through. And when you add on this debt on top of it, and now we have a lot of debt and no income, it's a stressful time for a lot of doctors out here. And it's a stressful time for anybody in the world, but anybody who's highly leveraged, for sure. So it's a shame that many symposiums aren't inviting speakers to talk about how we feel, right? It's always, let's get better at doing dentistry. Let's get better at doing medicine. But we need to remember that if we're not in the right frame of mind, and if we aren't happy with what we're doing and we're so stressed, there's no way we're going to be able to do that perfect crown or that perfect rubber dam placement or that perfect implant placement. Doctors need to be in the right frame of mind, enjoying their life, enjoying their job, and proud of what they do in order to do the best treatment. So you know how like every year we have our requirements that we have to do, right? You have to do your HIPAA, you have to do your infection control, you have to do your CPR. Well, I would ask is that the dental boards require us also to do some mental health discussion. Maybe some therapy sessions where we all sit together as dentists and discuss things that we've been through, hardships, struggles with finances, struggles with patients, struggles with litigation. Because what I found when I started talking about this is that people would come up to me and say, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one that was struggling here. Because on social media, everybody's happy. Everybody's great. Everybody's cases are perfect. Everybody's veneers stay on all the time. Everyone has perfect occlusion. Everyone's implants are placed perfectly, right? Because everybody shows their highlight reel. And I think it's time that many of us start showing our failures. And I know that's hard because many of us also have patients that follow us. And, you know, we run businesses. Of course, we have to make money doing this. But what I've found over my, and I've been practicing for 10 years, not multiple decades, but for 10 years, is that the more honest I am with my patients, the more they respect me. So the more I say things like, I'm going to place this implant and there's a chance this could fail. We have really high success rates, but there's a chance this could fail. There's a chance it could get infected. You could lose bone on this, etc., etc. But they understand that. Instead of being like, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. Because then if something happens and you're promising them the world, and ask me how I know this, because I've been there early in my career, you're kind of caught with your pants down. And so what I would rather do is under-promise to my patients and try to over-deliver. And when I started doing that, I tell you that my patients, I feel, they maybe didn't tell me this, but I feel like they respect me more because they understand this isn't, not every case works, not every case is perfect. So I encourage those, and especially young doctors, to talk to your patients and be very, very honest with them. Go over the informed consent with them. You could get infection, this could fail, the sutures may come out, you may not like the aesthetics, etc., etc. I also encourage you to be very honest when complications do happen. So when complications happen, because they happen to everybody, I encourage you guys to tell the patient immediately. Let them know how we're going to fix it and maybe why this happened. I'm reading some of your comments here. So One of the speakers that I really, really highly regard is Joseph Kahn. And if you've seen Joseph Kahn speak, he's an amazing kind of peri-op clinician. He does both the surgical, the restorative side of implant dentistry. He does aesthetics as well. But when you see Joe speak, what he mostly speaks about are his failures. And his humility of his cases makes you respect him even more. And what I love is that he'll show cases where he says, I showed this case, I did this case, I thought it was so good, I showed it all over the world on the biggest stages. I even published it in this highly regarded journal. And then 5 years later, this is what it looked like. And the tissue's gone, the bone's gone, there's pus, the patient's all over the place, the patient's mad. And it shows that someone like that even has complications. And when I started to see Joe speak like that, I wanted to also start showing failures. Because you can learn a little bit from people's successes, right? But I think you really learn from their failures. And I've been lucky to have my 3 mentors that have been able to show me their failures. And I remember that one of my mentors, Sasha Jovanovic, told me a quote one time. I think I was having a difficult time with a patient. And I said, Sasha, I'm having a hard time dealing with complications. And he said, Kyle, I've failed more than you have tried. And it really just put me at ease, because when I think of my mentors, they're up here. They can't do anything wrong. And to hear that they've been through everything that I've been through, it just makes us connect as a human. So during this difficult time of uncertainty with our profession, with our income, our bank accounts, taking care of our family, our health, I think that we can consider how we treat patients. We can consider how we speak to our patients, how we prepare them for complications, and how we manage our stress. And one of the best things I did to manage my stress, because for those of you that haven't heard me speak about this topic, a few years ago, I wanted to quit dentistry. And I talked to my wife, I talked to my family, I talked to some friends, and I almost quit because I was so stressed out. So I internalized all of this and said, how can I figure out what's bothering me? And I started looking into it. I started looking at research. I started speaking with friends, speaking with colleagues, seeing if they were stressed out as well. And if they were, what was causing them stress? And I made 12 different kind of tenets of stress that happens in the dental world. And that's what I speak about now. And I try to help doctors that are in the middle of it, or maybe even haven't been through this. Because most of the older doctors I talk to have all been through this. They have this kind of maybe midlife crisis. And I think it comes around after practicing for maybe, 8 to 15 years is what I have found with people that I've talked to. And so we need to prepare for this, right? Mentally. And I think social media doesn't help this, because everybody's showing their highlight reel. Everybody's showing how great they are, how fun their office is, how great their staff is. And we all know that this is not real life. We have to, and someone just mentioned weakness, we have to be able to admit our faults, admit our weaknesses, and then learn how we can better ourselves that way. So I was a hypocrite about this stuff before. Because if someone was depressed, or if someone was stressed, going through a hard time, I would say, just get over it. But it was because I hadn't been through that yet. And now, having gone through it, having been at the bottom, and I wasn't suicidal, but I know many of our colleagues that have committed suicide or have been there. This is something that we need to be talking about. When I speak at, a big conference, let's say, I'm not even a big conference, let's say I have 100 people in the room, and I say, how many people, raise your hand if you know a dentist that has committed suicide, right? About 70% of the hands usually go up. And that's scary, because you have so many of people in our profession that are so stressed out that they don't have a way out. This is something that we need to be talking about. So if you see a friend that seems stressed out, talk to them. Reach out. Admit something that maybe a hardship that you had that may allow you guys to connect on that level. You can complain about a patient. We all have like that patient that when they say, oh, Joe's coming in today, it's like, oh no. Or, whoever it is, we all have those patients. And if you can reach out to these people at the right time, and we can get past this taboo subject in our society, we can save lives, which is way better than doing a better crown, or way better than a better smile design or a better implant, right? If we can save our colleagues from this stress, this can really change our profession. And someone just asked if I can put this on YouTube. Yeah, I'll try to download this and put this on YouTube. I'm also working on a little more formal of a lecture, I guess, on this topic. And so if you guys would be interested in something like this, just let me know in the comments, because I would have to do it on a little bit bigger platform where you'd have to sign in and things like that. But I've had a lot of people message me about this. It says, even as a dental student, I meet students that are stressed, and it is definitely helpful to share difficulties because it immediately boosts their mood. Yeah, this brings up a good point. So I taught at USC for about 9 years, and a few years ago I had a student that always seemed kind of stressed. He was always late. His desk was always messy. He didn't turn in assignments. And I remember chatting with him a few times and saying, hey, is everything all right? Yeah, Dr. Stanley, everything's fine. It's just like a lot of stuff happening. And then a few weeks later, I chatted with him again. Hey, is everything okay? Is everything okay at home? Is there anything you need to talk to me about? No, I'm just kind of stressed with dental school. Well, a few weeks later, I noticed that he wasn't at his desk. And we found out that he had committed suicide. And I'm not sure what was happening outside of dental school, but he felt that he had no way of getting out of the stress. And for those of you that have had a colleague or a student or a friend commit suicide, you know that it is a difficult thing to deal with. Now, I'll tell you, dental students, that dental school's not the hard part. Once you get out of school, that's the hard part. You look back on dental school and you're like, gosh, that's all I had to do. I didn't have to run a business. I didn't have to manage staff. I didn't have to, many of us aren't married, have kids in dental school. So when you get out of dental school, the stress really starts. And I think a difficult thing for many of us dentists is that we are overachievers, right? You had to do pretty good in high school to get into college. You had to do pretty good in college to get into dental school. You had to do good on your DATs to get into dental school. And then you've kind of went your whole life, let's say you're 22, 24, 25 when you get into dental school. You've went your whole life and you haven't really failed. And then, as many of you know, you get into dental school and you fail your first test. And I remember one of the first tests in our dental school where people were failing. And we had people on their knees crying, calling their mom, thinking I'm going to quit. And we laughed about it then. And thinking back, it's because none of us had failed before. We had all been such achievers in our lives that we had never failed. And then the same thing happens when we get into our profession, not in dental school, is that we fail. And the thing is, if you practice dentistry long enough, you're going to fail. And whether that's a clinical failure or whether that is an interpersonal relationship failure with a staff or with a patient, even if you didn't do anything wrong clinically, but a patient is not happy and is asking for their money back, or they're threatening to sue you or something like this, it's going to happen to you. And someone just said, why don't dental schools have lectures that discuss these issues, the emotional side of dentistry? That's a great question, and it's something that I've been trying to work with the American Dental Association on. They are aware of this topic. I'm working closely with them on a few things regarding AI and regarding this emotional side. But I think the main reason is not just dental school. It's because, and excuse me for those of you that are just joining, I was shedding a few tears. The main issue is that in our society, you're perceived as being weak if you have depression, or if you have stress, or if you have anxiety. And so it's this taboo subject that people want to kind of rake under the rug. Now, what I've found, and I've spoken at a few dental schools, but very few, like 2, about this topic. And those dental schools that invited me, why did they invite me? Well, because they had suicides at their dental school. And it took you can hear my dog snoring, sorry. It took a student to kill themselves in order for these dental schools to create a task force or a stress club or an emotional club or something. And that shouldn't be the case. We should be a little more preventative. In dentistry, we like to be preventative. My bulldog is snoring so much. Butter, hey, no snoring, please. For those of you that are into airway, she is a total airway patient. Long, soft palate, small nostrils, retruded maxilla, her airway is teeny. But it took these dental schools to have a student commit suicide in order to create some kind of mental health initiative. And this should be part of our curriculum. This should be part of, like I said earlier in this, if you weren't here, this should be part of our CE credits, right? In order to be a dentist, to get your license, you should have to have, I don't know if it's therapy sessions or mental health training or just discussing it in order to keep practicing. Is my bulldog too loud? Please tell me, because I can move her. So if it's too loud and you're having a problem hearing me, tell me. So I guess we could probably summarize this right now. We're in a difficult position right now. A lot of our income, most of us have no income, unless very little income. Chad Perry, my friend, just said that I find that gratitude is so essential in these hard times. That's totally true. I know a lot of people say the very first thing you should do is, when you wake up in the morning, is to think about what you have, right? And think about the important things, right? Your family, your friends, your health, your profession. And having that gratitude can help you kind of get through the day, no matter how stressful things are. So we have this difficult time where most of us have no money. And if you didn't see the beginning of this, call your banks and ask for deferment. I did for my mortgage and my student loans. And tomorrow I'm going to call for my car payments. Let's start talking about this subject, right? I don't want to be the only one talking about it. And, I just did a podcast the other day. I've done a few podcasts about this, which is good because that will spread a little bit faster. But I don't want to be the only speaker talking about this. I'm happy to go anywhere after the travel ban and talk about this subject. So if anybody has connections to societies or dental schools, young doctors, I think those are the people we really need to get to, are the young doctors, because many people that I have heard about that have taken their own lives are, like I said, in the 8 to 15 years out of school range. This is when you have your student loans, you've bought a practice even, you've maybe gotten married, you bought a house, and on top of that, maybe there's litigation. A patient is suing you. Or you're going through divorce. Or you're having professional jealousy. What you see on Instagram, right? Everybody's amazing cases. But the main thing is, let's just talk about it. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. Now, a little caveat that I'll give you is that it really helps to talk to dentists specifically, because many people won't understand what we're going through, right? It's like they haven't been in the trenches, okay? So I found this when I talked to some of my friends that weren't dentists, and I would say, gosh, I'm really stressed out. I've got this patient that's kind of going crazy, and, this and that, and debt, and stress, and back pain, and time constraints. And they would say, Kyle, you're a dentist. Like, you've got a great job. You make a good amount of money. You've got a nice family. What do you have to worry about? But then when I talked to a dentist, they were like, oh my God, yes, finally. Oh, you're going through that too? Yes, let's talk about this. So I have this patient, Jane, and she is and, oh, my student loan just went up, and this and that and that. They get it. And I even had close friends when I started talking about this a few years ago that I had no idea were super stressed out. And they said, thank you for talking about this, because I thought I was the only one. So the main thing is, let's talk about this, especially in dentistry, but really in every profession. Let's get this taboo subject out of the way. And let's be open about our weaknesses. Let's be open about our stress, our depression. Everybody goes through difficult times. And let's try to get this topic out to the young dentists, because that's where we're going to make the most impact. I had a very interesting, sad thing happen a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, I posted that I was going to be speaking at the AO, at the Academy of Osseointegration in Seattle. And I was going to be speaking about the dark side of dentistry, which is this whole topic that I've kind of created. Let me grab my dog because she's snoring so much. Come on. Okay. So, I was talking about the dark side of dentistry and speaking about it at the AO. And I got a lot of comments on this post, much more than I usually get. And I had a friend reach out to me, my friend from Brazil. And he said, Kyle, thank you so much for talking about this topic, but I don't know if you know, but my father committed suicide. And he just was so stressed out with our profession and he couldn't take it. And to hear that coming from one of my friends, and what I later found out was that, he was like one of the really highly regarded implantologists in Brazil and very involved in my residency before I was there. And to hear this coming from one of my friends was just so sad. I mean, being a father myself and thinking about my son being alone because I couldn't handle the stress was wild to think about. So, most of you probably know people who have been through this. I really hope that this time that's happening in the world will not cause more of this to happen. So that was why I wanted to come on tonight, in this ugly jacket and oily hair, and just start talking about it. So what I will do is I'll save this. I'll try to post it on YouTube. I'll also post it on my feed so that you guys can share it. And I'm not saying to share it because give me more followers or whatever. Just share it so that people can see this and know that someone is talking about this, because I think that it'll resonate hearing another doctor talk about this. And there was a comment here that it's not only a problem in the States. Yeah, I think the one thing, it's definitely dentistry across the board. The one thing that I think is worse in the United States is our student loan, because most of us don't get free dental school like it is in many other countries. But yeah, I mean, I just told you that story about my friend's dad in Brazil who committed suicide. I've had colleagues reach out to me from Asian countries, European countries, South America, Middle East, Africa, all saying that this is happening everywhere. So let me know if you guys would be interested in hearing me speak more about this a little more formally, so you can hear all the 12 tenets of what's causing stress in our profession. It'd be something where you just log in and a video chat kind of thing where I can show my slides. But if you would be interested in that, let me know and I'll try to make it happen. I thank you guys for sitting through this and for, following me and allowing me to post stupid pictures of my dog and, my family and all the things that I'm passionate about. So please share this somehow. And if there's any doctors, or really anybody out there that needs somebody to talk to, message me. I'm happy to tell you what I've been through and what has helped me, and you're not alone. And we've all been through it. If you haven't been through it, you probably will, so brace for that. Especially those new grads. That's what my friend just wrote there. So thanks, guys. Spread the word on this topic, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Any other questions while I'm on here that you guys want to ask live, or you want to ask Butterball? Let's see. Maybe everybody's sleeping. Especially for new grads. Let me go through some of these. Okay, so some people said, yes, I'm interested. Thanks for showing the internal part of you. Thank you very much. I like that jacket and rings and bracelets. Real life. Yes, this is real life. Everybody's at home, in their pajamas all day now. If we can talk about it enough, it won't be taboo subject. Not only in the States is a problem. Definitely true. We're in a field of high demands, high expectations. Dental students should actually be taught how to disconnect from the job. That's a good point. One thing that I've learned is to disconnect myself from my job in the way of knowing what my purpose is. So my purpose is not to be a dentist, right? My purpose is to be a father, to be a husband, to be a brother, to be a son. That's my purpose. My profession is dentistry, and I can be passionate about it, but it's not my purpose. So that's a really good point. So I think what happens with us is that we think our purpose and our identity is in dentistry. So then when we fail at that, like it's going to happen at some point, patient's not going to be happy, or it's not going to be aesthetic or whatever, then our sense of self and our self-worth goes down. So how you should think about yourself is like when you meet someone at a party or in an airplane and they say, what do you do? Or tell me about yourself. We always lead with our profession. And what I would encourage us to do is lead with our purpose, right? So, what do you do? First thing, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a family man. I happen to be a dentist as well. And it may sound weird saying that, right? But I think internalizing that allows us to disconnect from the dentistry. It can still be our passion. But when things go wrong, our self-worth won't go down with that purpose. So I hope that makes sense. People saying we need to talk about this more. Yes, we need to talk about this in dental schools. We need to talk about this in symposiums. Dental schools need these. Even as a dental student, it's difficult to share our difficulties. It immediately boosts their mood. We need to talk about this. So someone said our mistakes did not make us worse. We need to learn from them and start talking about this. Yeah, this is exactly right. You see the speakers that get up there and talk about their mistakes. That's how you learn, right? Because let them make the mistakes. You learn from the mistakes. So I've been ranting for a while, but I'm going to finish it again and say thank you for watching this. Thank you for following me. Anybody who supports me, who likes my pictures, comments on my pictures, comes to my courses, sends me nice messages. It really means a lot to me. And if I haven't met you in person, I hope to meet you at some point. So good night, everybody. Stay safe, and let's make sure we keep talking about this. Again, if anybody needs to talk to anybody, message me. All right? I look at my messages. Okay. Have a good night, guys. There's Butterball as a finishing touch.